I call the July 11th, 2023 City Council regular meeting to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor David Ortega.
Present.
Vice Mayor Kathy Littlefield.
Present.
Council members Tammy Caputi.
Here.
Tom Durham.
Here.
Barry Graham.
Here.
Betty Janik.
Here.
And Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Jim Thompson.
Here.
City Attorney Sherry Scott.
Here.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews.
Here.
Acting City Auditor Lake Clough.
Here.
And the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. I want to point out that we do have Scottsdale Police Sergeant Sean Ryan and Detective Dustin Patrick, as well as firefighter Cody Taylor, if anyone requires their assistance. And in light of the fire that occurred about 10 days ago, you've got to give a hand to our first responders and working in unison with the Forest Service. So at this point, I will let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Tom Durham. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think it's very important that we call to mind the struggle in the country of Ukraine for freedom and democracy. So I ask us to pause in silence for the people of Ukraine. Thank you very much. Well, next we have a celebration, and it is a retirement. And our Deputy City Clerk, Kathy Butwig, will be retiring on August 11th after 20 years of service. She started her career in 2004. And she's been with the city clerk's office during her entire time here in the city of Scottsdale. You know, I was curious about the name Butwig, and when I looked it up, there were three attributes. The first one is the word captain, and the second one is good, and the third is graceful. And I think that's an amazing attribute that you really show us and the city, and especially since you are the face of the city, which normally is the first entry point for someone coming to our fine city. You've been a dedicated municipal professional for many years, and you've been on the Arizona Municipal Clerks Association since 2009. You've had various committee work as co-chair and records management, and contributed for the betterment of all clerks in Arizona Municipality Association. You are certified municipal clerk, master municipal clerk, certified municipal election official. We need those very much, thank you. And certified election officer. Now, during her tenure with Scottsdale, Kathy has filled many roles and responsibilities in the city clerk's office, where she has served the office's most senior member and has a wealth of knowledge. I also checked your horoscope to find out more about you. And this is what it says. It says, Buttigieg enjoys challenges and rivalries. A realist and visionary planner. Those with the name Buttigieg leave their mark on human civilization and like to discover interesting details such as names and numerology. Perfectly fitting a clerk. Her favorite number is 451. 451 is the number of city council meetings Kathy has attended. Her other favorite number is 649. That's the number of sets of meeting minutes she has produced in her career. So those are your lucky numbers. And I guess we'll add tonight, you know, we're going into recess, so we will miss you. And, you know, what's very interesting also about Kathy, and the 2007 and 8, there were a lot of hardships with the recession and so forth. And in 2008, Kathy started attending all council meetings as cost savings. The clerk's office used to have a contractor attend the council meetings and produce the minutes. When the city went through those budget reductions, she proposed and volunteered the elimination of that vendor, and then has since taken the minutes. So thank you very much. It really is an art. And, you know, part of praising you is also praising the person that hired you. And Carolyn Jagger was a remarkable, she's a former city clerk. I was on council when we hired her, by the way, as a charter officer back in 2002. So thank you, Kathy, for all the dedicated years of work and what you've contributed to the profession. And I bet you Carolyn is watching, or will at least get the replay. Can you please join us here in front? We'd like to present you with a few gifts. Oh yeah, go ahead, Solange.
Hi, Kathy. I just want to say, I mean, you know, in a world full of bravado, it seems to me the people who get the most done are the quietest, and that is, you know, what is it that behind every good city manager, I guess or city clerk, is the assistant city clerk. You have been amazing. Quiet, amazing. You have never complained about being here till almost 11 o'clock at night, and then you produce incredible minutes, despite I'm not even clear sometimes. So truly, I know you could have retired at the time Carolyn Jagger retired, and you stayed with us to make sure that we had a very good transition. That dedication, I just am so appreciative, and you are going to be so missed. But we're in good hands thanks to you and Carolyn producing, helping us get a new city clerk. So thank you.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Kathy, I just wanted to echo what Solange has said and what David has said. You have done a fantastic job for all of us. Every time we come to you with our problems and our issues and our concerns, you have the answers for us, and I really appreciated that, especially when I first started here and I didn't know what I was doing. So I wanted to thank you very much for all your dedication to the city and to all of us up here, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful retirement.
Well, let's continue. Councilmember Graham.
Thanks for letting me bother you all those years, and it's just been great working with you. And you serve as an example. You've been in your position for so long, and people my generation and the one below me, they're leaving their jobs after they can't stay at a job longer than 6 months, a year. You show them how it's done. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councilwoman Janik. Hello, Betty.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for your professionalism and your dedication. You are the ideal civil servant, and we all appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, we do have a sign of our appreciation, so please join us. Center. So, resuming, actually, in the spirit of Kathy Buttigieg and her volunteerism, I want to make an announcement. The applications for volunteers for boards and commissions, of course, go through the clerk's office. We have advertisements or notices out to the public. If you are interested, know that you're invited to apply to serve the city on the city boards and commissions. Applications are now being accepted until August 3rd for 5 boards. And then at the end of August, we have another 10 boards and commissions. The spirit of service is alive and well in Scottsdale. You can go to scottsdaleaz.gov. One factoid is that we have approximately 2,640 positions in Scottsdale, employees. Before COVID, we had close to 3,800 volunteers in this city. Think about that. And we plan, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to, this crosses all areas, from the volunteers at the hospital, volunteers with the Charros, volunteers at the preserve, volunteers looking at cameras in our traffic department. There's some high schoolers that are interested in that. And so I'm hoping that we can actually get 5,200 volunteers, twice as many volunteers as we have employees. That's the spirit of Scottsdale. Moving on with a PSA, during tonight's meeting, the council may make a motion to recess into executive session to obtain legal advice on any applicable item on the agenda. If authorized by the council, the executive session will be held immediately and will not be open to the public. The public meeting will resume following the executive session. The second announcement is that per our council rules of procedure, citizens attending city council meetings shall observe the same rules of order and decorum applicable to members of the council and city staff. Unauthorized remarks or demonstrations from the audience, such as applause, stamping of feet, whistles, boos, yells, and/or other demonstrations, shall not be permitted. Violation of these rules could result in removal from the meeting by security staff. We do have a wonderful etiquette in Scottsdale. Next, we will go to public comment. Public comment is reserved for Scottsdale citizens, Scottsdale business owners, and/or Scottsdale property owners to comment on non-agendized items that are within the council's jurisdiction. Advocacy for or against a candidate or ballot measure during the council meeting is not allowed pursuant to Arizona statute and is therefore not deemed to be within council's jurisdiction. No official action can be taken on public comment, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes to address the council. If you wish to speak on a non-agendized item or an agendized item, please see the city clerk. We have cards, and you can so note a public comment or otherwise. I have one speaker, so I will open public comment. Robert Grossman, please state your place of residence, and thank you for being here. We have a point here. Thank you. Hi.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much to the council for allowing me to speak. I had sent some emails, which some of you may or may not have seen, regarding this topic matter, which is water pumping station 57. I live up in the Winfield community on the corner of Scottsdale Road and Westland Drive. And water pumping station 57 has recently undergone a major renovation. At the outset of this renovation, we had spoken to the project foreman because we were somewhat concerned, especially because my property backs pretty much right onto it, what was going on, what was going to happen, and what the final product was going to look like. They told us, for all intents and purposes, you have nothing to worry about, nothing's really going to change. We're replacing a couple of the tanks, and you will see really no change. 2 years later, we have found that that is not the case. In addition to the replacement of the tanks, they have put several large venting units on top of these tanks, which, to be honest, are just kind of an eyesore and are blocking our views from my home and several other homes. We have really nice views toward Black Mountain, and now we're looking at these fairly ugly eyesore vents. And what I've done is I've just asked the project manager and some of the other people involved at the Department of Water, can you please just send someone out, take a look at this project, take a look at what it's done to our community, just talk to us a little bit. Maybe you can extend the height of the wall, maybe there's some shrubbery you can put up, just to kind of help us bring our views back to something that's a little bit more pleasant. And to be honest, I've kind of been brushed off. Every time I try to send an email, I get a response from someone else. I've been told nothing has really changed, when clearly that's not true. So we're just requesting that someone from the Department of Water, from the city, come take a look, see what might be done to restore our views to something that's a little bit more pleasant again. I don't think this is going to cost the city millions of dollars. I think it's a fairly simple fix. But we just feel like we really haven't been heard. So I would just wanted to state our case and see if perhaps someone can contact me, come up, take a look, and see if there's something that we can do about it.
Well, thank you, sir. And I'm guessing your residence is on file with the clerk, and we will take a note. The standard process is for every email to be acknowledged, and then we send it on with as council individuals to the staff people that would answer and keep us in the loop. So thank you very much, sir.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next, we will, I will therefore close public comment, and we will return, we will continue with our agenda, which includes, excuse me, we have to approve minutes, don't we? No, there were no minutes this time. Excuse me? Yes, excuse me. Okay, I'm just, yeah, I don't see that there are, right? All right. The reason I am referring to this is I have a lot of paperwork on Ms. Budwick. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Okay, we're proceeding, and we're going to the consent agenda? Yes, okay. Which is items 1 through 14. We have an opportunity for the public to comment on any of the items by stating the item number or subject. So we do make a call to the public. And I'm told there are no requests for any by the public, so I would close the public comment portion of the consent agenda. Do council members have any questions on any of the consent items, wanting more clarification? And I see Councilwoman Whitehead.
I don't have any questions. I just want to thoroughly thank the McDowell-Sonoran Conservancy for their work and our staff for assisting in that effort, and just enthusiastically support the contract tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Graham, would you like a presentation?
Oh, yes, please. Councilmember Whitehead, you'll get to say more in a second. I was going to ask for presentations for items 9, 10, and 11. One of those was McDowell-Sonoran Conservancy Agreement. So if we could take those from the consent.
Okay, so
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, go ahead.
they would remain on consent? Or
I was kind of wanting to hear.
Okay, so
It might be labor. It might be a little bit.
I understand what you're saying. However, I'm just going to ask for a clarification because people don't necessarily know what 9, 10, and 11 mean.
Okay.
So 9 is obviously public services and facilities.
9 is the rawhide wash flood hazard mitigation,
Good.
IGA.
Good. Number 10?
10 is the modernize and expand police and fire training facility construction services contract. 11 is McDowell-Sonoran Conservancy Agreement.
Okay, so those will be moved to regular agenda. And at this point, I would like I'm open to a motion for items 1 through 14, excluding item 9, 10, and 11.
Mayor,
So moved.
I'll second that.
Good, we have a
Thank you,
motion and a
Mayor.
second.
Thank you.
And at this point, I don't see any hands up, so please record your vote for consent agenda items as stated. Thank you. Those are unanimous. Next, we are moving to the second part of our agenda, which has to do with the regular posted agenda items and items number 9, 10, and 11. I will ask for presentation. Rawhide Wash Flood Hazard Mitigation is number 9. This involves usually a CIP with coordination of the joint agreements with the county and so forth. So I'd ask those engineers to please step forward and make your presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Hassan Mushtaq. I am a floodplain administrator for the City of Scottsdale. Item number 9 is a joint cost share project with the City of Phoenix and Maricopa County Flood Control District. We've already seen this IGA a month ago. We signed the contract with the parties. This item today requests additional clarification on item 7, 8, and 9 on the agenda. So Flood Control District requested language change in the document. So that necessitated another round of approval from the mayor and council at this time. So no new information, but we already approved it about a month ago.
Thank you. Did you have a specific question?
Hassan, do you have any, can you pull up the renderings? Do you have a presentation for us?
Unfortunately, I do not. I do have a hard copy of the document.
Okay, you can put it on they're ready to go, aren't they? Really, I was curious, so the original agreement was for 15 million, and the updated amendment is 30 million, and I was just wondering if you could just teach us a little more about that.
That is correct. The original phase 1 contract was for 15 million total. By the time the two phases came together, because of the change in the market, construction activities, and the cost of contractors and so forth, the two phases together totals up to 30 million now.
So in the packet it says due to uncertainty of the market. That's the reason it gives for the doubling. Did I miss something?
That's partly correct. Uncertainty includes the cost of
Thank you, Sherry.
construction material and the labor force and so forth from 3-4 years ago. Added on to the second phase, which is extending the project up north beyond Happy Valley Road. And
So is the doubling of the project, and did the project, was it extended or expanded, or was it just strictly cost increases that increased an 100% increase?
on the screen, if you will, the phase 1 of the project is half of that rectangle from Pinnacle Peak Road to the south to Happy Valley Road. That was phase 1. Actually, I correct myself. There's Miller Road Bridge crossing. That was phase 1, and from Miller Road all the way up to the upper end of the wash is the phase 2 part of it. So as you can see, the size of the project increased significantly. Added on to that was the cost as well. The phase 1 cost estimate came in, and by the time we got to the phase 2 cost estimate, things were all over the place, and we had to put it together, and total was double.
So would you say there was an error kind of in the initial estimation of the scope?
I hate to call it an error, but it's maybe a shortage of the foresight, how much activities or phases, if you will, the total project consisted of originally was a little lacking in that manner.
Okay. Well, I was pleased. I know this is an intergovernmental agreement, so I know that we don't bear all the costs of that increase. In fact, our contribution went down from 10% to 9% of the project, but our contribution is still sharply increasing. It says in the packet, it says upon adoption by the parties of the amendment. Can you confirm the other parties have approved the amendment?
Draft document has been approved by all parties because before we come to the council, the agreement has to be reached between parties about the contract, the language, the agreements, the conditions, and everything else. Otherwise, we wouldn't put it up for approval request.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. No further questions, Hassan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Whitehead?
Yeah, I do want to talk about this because I've been involved for a little bit longer. This phase one, I think it was my understanding that we knew the project was going to be phase one and then an additional phase two. Wasn't this known? I mean, perhaps this is a question for Bill Murphy or somebody. This was, it was always a larger project that was being done in phases. Is not correct?
For the ease of design of the project, it was talked about to do it in 2 phases first. Phase 1, it's a biteable chunk, and come back and add phase 2. But the way the cost was increasing, it was decided, let's just put it all together and not wait for more increase later on and
Okay.
combine it.
So-
and make it one
but my point is that we doubled the size of the project and doubled the cost, and I don't see, Mr. Graham inferred that there was a mistake. I don't see a mistake. I think we made a decision, and perhaps, again, city engineer Dan Worth, there's a number of people who could answer this, but the decision was made to do the project all at once in order to probably save from future cost increases. That's what I'm hearing?
That's
That
not what
would
the
be
packet said something differently, so. I was
Okay,
just-
so I'm glad to get the clarifications,
Yeah.
Councilman Graham. The other question I have is, so thank you for bringing it up. The other question I have is having to do with the county portion of the flood. Can you break that down? It's in the packet, but it might be good for the public to hear. What part of it is it a 50-50 matching?
So when, excuse me, when we started the project, phase 1 was cost shared, 50% flood control, 40% City of Phoenix, and 10% City of Scottsdale.
Okay, so 10% Scottsdale, okay.
For the first phase, which was 15 million.
Okay.
When we added the projects together, by that time, the flood control district has changed their cost share, they increased their cost share. So remaining 15 million, flood control is paying 65%, and Phoenix and us, we are doing accordingly 40 and 10 out of the remaining 35%. So it's a little complicated.
Okay.
Our share went down. Our contribution went down a little bit.
So I think what I just heard is that, so 10%, our total costs, so of this $30 million, we're paying how much?
Oh, small amount.
A small amount.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and this is a good illustration of what's called an alluvial fan. Alluvial fan is the most unstable soil conditions, basically where soft soils run off mountainsides, and they create a hazard on Scottsdale Road. This is a drainage and safety solution, and you may be aware over the years all of these silts and sands that were impeding traffic when we have heavy flooding and so forth. So this is why it's a regional project. It's a regional project because it's life safety as well as stabilizing. You see in this illustration what looks like a fan almost. The handle is in Scottsdale, and then it crosses Scottsdale Road, and of course that's where those interests are. I move for approval of item number 9, which is revised amendment to intergovernmental agreement between City of Scottsdale and City of Phoenix and the Flood Control District of Maricopa County for construction management and operation and maintenance of the Rawhide Wash Flood Hazard Mitigation Project. So I'd ask to adopt resolution number 12890, authorizing intergovernmental agreement, amendment 2020 -01 City of Scottsdale A2 between the City of Scottsdale, City of Phoenix, and Flood District, Maricopa County.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Just real quick, Mayor, thank you, Hassan, for explaining some of that to us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, please record your vote. Councilman Durham? Good. I expect to see this contract on my desk tomorrow, so it will be there. Okay, next we'll go to item number 10. Please present construction manager at risk contract to modernize and expand the police and fire training facility. Ms. Timku, our city engineer.
Sorry, I was looking for the mouse. Okay, good evening, Mayor, members of council, Allison Timku, city engineer. The item before you is item 10. It's the construction manager at risk contract to modernize and expand the police and fire training facility. This is bond 2019 project 27. We're requesting to authorize construction manager at risk 2023-065 COS A1 with core construction in the amount of $4,872,893 for GMP number 2 for this project to provide remaining construction services as required to complete the facility. Okay, so this is a location map for this project. As we've discussed several times before, this project is located in the city of Tempe. It's at our Hans facility, and this is the location map. It's south of Curry Road and just near the Loop 202 and Hayden Road. So as you recall, on May 16th of 2023, City Council approved the first of 2 guaranteed maximum price contracts. So the first one was GMP1 on May 16th, and that was in the amount of $9,250,058, and that was for the procurement of long lead material and equipment for the project. And then the purpose of this action is to authorize guaranteed maximum price number 2, which includes the complete construction services for the facility. So as we've explained previously, the existing facility was constructed in 1995. It was designed to support 215 police officers. Scottsdale now has 689 sworn and civilian personnel, and the use of that training facility is no longer adequate. It doesn't have the adequate space to accommodate our required training. Our police staff are being trained elsewhere. The current facility is over 20 years old. It's undersized and doesn't meet the national training curriculum standards. So it limits what we can do with our staff and compromises public safety. This is the proposed site plan. The north arrow on this is pointed to the right. But as you recall from previous presentations, the red area here shows the fire training facility that is currently under construction. And then the blue on this site plan shows the police training facility. So the lighter blue is the existing facility, and then the darker blue is the expansion. Oh, wrong direction, sorry. Okay, so this shows the proposed expansion. It's a view from the southeast looking northwest, and there's a line in the middle depicting what is existing and what is the expansion. And then this is another view of the proposed expansion, and it's a view from the southwest looking northeast, and this primarily shows the expansion and less of the existing facility. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Okay, we have Councilman Graham.
Oh, if there are others with questions, I'll defer to them.
Well, you moved.
I did.
it,
I
so
did.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Allison, for your presentation. What I kind of pulled this because this is one of the Bond 2019 projects, and we talked a lot about it when we discussed the fire training facility. I'm trying to, in this project, separate the process from the need, because I know we're going to hear, and I agree with everybody, that the current facility is grossly inadequate. Police needs more conference rooms. They need better conference rooms. I agree with that. They need better shooting lanes. They need more shooting lanes. They need a better training facility. They need to be able to have a better facility so they can recruit more personnel. They need to be able to have a good facility so they can keep their personnel and feel valued. So this is not at all about the need. We need a new police and fire training facility down there. I've been there myself, and it is in disrepair. So I'm trying to separate the need from the process here. And I feel like I have to start that. I'm also going to say that I'm going to support this project. I think that for all the reasons I just mentioned, I'm going to support the project. But what I'm trying to home in on is how we told voters in 2019 that the facility was going to be 7,000 square feet, and this one is double that. And I'm trying to home in on, we told voters it was going to be 4 million, 4.2 million, and now we're voting on 20 million, which is almost a 400% increase. So we went to the voters and they expected us to be in the ballpark of what the need was. And I'm just asking, was there a breakdown in communication? Did somebody provide or receive wrong information? Was a review missed? And it's not to like catch somebody or put somebody on the spot, but it's really these are a lot of tax dollars, and the variance is substantial, and we want to prevent it from happening again as best we can. So can you talk a little bit, because an error was made?
May I interrupt here? And I am interrupting because our city engineer is not here to discuss bond issues, how it was written, when it was written. These are professionals that are executing the building that you just spoke of. We all know that it is needed, and the agendized item in particular is regarding construction manager at risk. It's not the topic of doing an autopsy on the 2019, wait. She is not entitled to, she's not going to answer your question. She's representing the agendized item because that's why we are gathered here today. Now, if there's any question regarding bond acquisitions, bond promises, or whatever, that may be agendized by you, and you can explore it as deep as you want. As you know, I appointed you to the budget, the audit committee, and that's a good place to be. If you choose to do that, that can be done, but it's not the topic on our agenda. So that's why I have to interrupt and say that respectfully. That's why we have an engineer answering the question, not a bond specialist, and trying to go back in time, as I know auditors can do and CPAs can do. It's not where we're prepared to respond today, or
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
Respectfully,
Yes.
we are being asked to approve an increase in funding. And so I'm trying to get information why. This is absolutely relevant, and you're trying to cut off debate.
I am not cutting off debate. I'm saying the debate is for 4.872 million for a project that is going to go from one ledger of dollars to actual jail, shooting range, and all those things. It is in my opinion, a zero sum. It's money that we're looking at today that goes on the ledger as an asset that then is worth whatever it's accounted for. If it's worth 20 million and we spend 20 million for it, I have put to use the funds of taxpayer money, and in this case, a substantial amount of general fund money to offset whatever, bond money there is. But that exploration of how and where back to 2018 is not why we're here tonight. It's not why we're here. We have a specific question. We have a contract that we will be looking at that will authorize a construction manager at risk. for this project.
Mr. Mayor, I respectfully disagree. I think that we're allowed to discuss why we're approving, and it's just kind of an audit. The audit committee is about a prospective and learning process and kind of going into the minutia, and the audit committee is good for that. But the questions are put on the table, and I still keep them there. So
I'm agreeing with you, and I'm saying that can be a separate agendized item, that it can be discussed in detail for whatever item may have had to deal with, supply chain shortages, all these other questions. That's a legitimate question. I understand that. But the purpose of the agenda and, by state law, we are to stick to the subject as the body, dealing with what brings people in our public notification process.
Okay, so when we're being requested for additional almost $5 million, what questions are appropriate then that could be asked?
The question are whether they are the lowest respective bidder. The question are whether it was properly advertised and the qualifications of the contractor to deliver, because I will have a contract tomorrow on my desk. It won't say, and what about when and how something was represented in a flyer or a pamphlet, 6 years ago or 5 years ago. How those conclusions happen are irrelevant to the, not only is the resolution in order, but there's all the backup material that end up being a signatory authorized by our council.
So you're saying that we can't ask about why our cost increase and if anything happened internally?
You have asked specifically about an area that's not, excuse me, you can ask, and as I said, they can say they're the lowest responsive bidder. That's our due diligence. And for this time and place, because I've been in the, the bidding and situation, when we approached this in May, there were certain things that were long lead items, right? And if those were delayed by going into the forensics of a bond some time ago, that we would have missed that window to order those specialty items that needed to be in the building. So we can't shortchange the police. We can't shortchange fire. We have an obligation today to look at what was before us, and that's why I have to give my ruling as far as whether or not, if you'd like to revisit another topic on any specific ones, and I'm not saying you're pointing fingers or wanting to get to the bottom of it, I'm not saying that at all. But obviously we've had to deal with COVID, all these other general factors that have been discussed both at our retreat and some of the prioritizing that we've been dealing with, as a body, as a group, saying, hey, this is what we have to work with. That's why I would prefer that, and I can ask my colleagues, but this is why we're able to discuss what we have on the agenda today. I see Councilwoman Whitehead, and then I'll go to Janik and Caputi.
Councilman Graham, are you finished?
I wasn't, but I'll defer and then we can come back.
So I do want to mention, I think we all appreciate Councilman Graham's question, but for the members of the public, I just want to point out that we have had this exact discussion on this exact facility twice.
That was the other facility?
No, we had it at the retreat. We talked about this specific facility in
But
one
not in
other
meetings.
council meeting. So I get it, and I think our Public Works Director, Dan Worth, had a really succinct way of putting how we got here with this particular facility. He had all the numbers quite well. How many different projects, I don't know, Dan, if you want to get to a microphone near you.
Maybe not.
You had how many projects your staff had to review very, very quickly before it was then reduced down to the actual number of projects that made it onto the onto the bond questions. And on this particular facility, staff was trying to save money, and we are fairly good at doing that by doing renovation instead of addition. So the bond question, which of course, this is written years ago, the bond question was written as a renovation. That turned out not to work, and therefore we're having to do the addition. Did I get close to
I want to
your
just
description?
clarify again. I think we're going off topic.
Okay,
We're
that's fine.
starting to get into the bond question.
Okay.
If people want to revisit our recording of all this
Thank you, Mayor.
discussion in detail, that is off topic.
Thank you.
And I don't need revisiting that topic because as per rule,
Yes.
we are going to stick to the agendized item. Now, this is not only our rule, but it's also state statute. State statute says when you list what your agenda is, the body will stick to that subject. Now, that's the extent of our duty, and it's important if someone, again, wants to revisit competency, the COVID, election rules, I don't know what else could be brought in and within our jurisdiction, but that is not the agenda item. So I would
May I
cut
wrap
you
up?
off there, and I would, again, try to please stick to the topic.
I will stick to the topic. Can I just wrap up by saying that anybody who is interested in this project from a bond perspective should just listen to the recording of the most recent would be the retreat. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Janik, Councilwoman Caputi, and then Councilmember Durham.
Thank you, Mayor. Really simple question. Are we almost ready to start construction on the project?
Yes, Councilwoman Janik, this is what we need, the authorization of this contract to start the construction. We've pre-purchased, like I said, the long lead materials that were required, and now we'd like to begin construction.
I love it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Caputi.
Just really quickly, I wanted to thank you, Allison, for your patience and for walking us all through this project, I think 2 or 3 times now, and being very clear. Same thing with our entire Public Works Department. These have been very strenuous and stressful times, and you've done a fantastic job, despite the headwinds of bringing us these projects, and again, walking us through several times so that we're clear on the numbers. And that we understand what we're voting on. So I feel very comfortable making a motion to approve. Do we have it up there, the motion language, or should I just read it off the agenda? I'm going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda item number 10, modernize and expand police and fire training facility construction services contract, adopt resolution number 12880.
Second.
A second, you need to speak to your second, and we'll take a vote. Or we can have more discussion about the motion. Ms. Durham, do you have any?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say on page 2 of the staff report, there's a pretty good discussion of why the price has gone up. We know there's been 22% inflation in the producer price index, and the facility was reevaluated and determined that they needed a separate shooting range, and they've changed the construction requirements for the shooting range. So, I would love to buy gas at 2019 prices, but I can't. If I want gas, I'm going to pay 2023 prices, and if we want this project, we've got to pay the 2023 price. So I certainly support the motion and the resolution.
Okay, any other hands up?
Oh, Mayor.
Okay, good.
I will accept the will of my colleagues and subdue my questions. The only reason I did feel merit in asking my questions because, like my colleague Councilman Durham said, this talks about costs. This talks about reasons why costs went up. This talks about why scope was changed. And those were my questions about this.
Well, but you did refer to the bond, and that was another area, so.
So does this.
I'm just.
So does this. And so
Are you done, or do you want to continue?
No, I'm.
If it's been explained well enough, we are all concerned to get this project going.
Yeah.
And if you have concerns about bond procedures and otherwise, please put it on the agenda, and we'll see if we get the votes to get that forward.
Mr. Mayor, like I said, I will defer to the will of the majority here and decline, but the first line of the paragraph is, it was approved in the 2019 bonds. That's the only reason I felt like I had, like it was valid to discuss it, because it's in the packet. So with that, and like I said, not debating the need of the facility, like Councilmember Janik said, let's get the shovels in the ground. They need a better facility. It was a process-focused question. Thank you.
Understand, and I think those questions were raised on May 16th to the police chief and fire chief directly. So we hope that we can, please record your vote. Thank you. Next, we're moving on to item number 11. Item number 11 is the deals with the Sonoran, McDowell-Sonoran Conservancy Agreement. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Ortega, members of the council. My name is Scott Hamilton. I'm the preserve manager in the Community Services Department. And we do have a brief couple of slides for you tonight. But this item in front of you is agenda item number 11. It's a 5-year agreement between the city and the McDowell-Sonoran Conservancy. We also have tonight with us Margie Trailer, and Kelly McCullough from the Conservancy, if you happen to have questions for them. And let's see, how do I go forward? There we go. So we have a very long-standing relationship with the Conservancy. It goes back over 30 years, actually a little bit longer than the preserves even existed. The nature of the partnership is that the city owns and operates the preserve, and the Conservancy is our primary nonprofit partner supporting us in the important work of maintaining and protecting the preserve. We've had prior contracts between the parties, and the first formal one was in 2009. Then we had one in 2011, 2018. The 2018 agreement expired at the end of June, so the item before you tonight would be a new 5-year agreement to go another 5 years. And essentially the contract establishes the roles of the parties, which the service provided by the Conservancy is essentially the comprehensive stewardship program that I believe many of you are aware of. It includes numerous programs. Some of the very prominent ones are the trailhead ambassadors. These are the stewards that are at our trailheads, mainly during the season. Probably not a lot of them out there on a day like today, but during the high season at the major trailheads, they staff the facilities, they answer questions, they give trail suggestions, information. Very important when it comes to public safety, especially when we start getting hotter days in the spring and then in the fall. Just cautioning people, make sure they have sturdy footwear, make sure they have a map, make sure they have their cell phone and they have plenty of water. We also have roving trail patrollers. Those are essentially very similar to the trailhead ambassadors, but they're out on the trail, hiking the trails. We have stewards on mountain bikes patrolling the trails. We also have some equestrian stewards out, communicating with the public, answering questions, that sort of thing. And then numerous education programs for citizens and visitors. Some of these are lectures at our public libraries. If you go to the Gateway Trailhead during the high time of the year, there's trailside naturalists that are there sharing, they have all of their props that they're sharing information with the public about our Sonoran Desert plants and animals. Of course, trail maintenance. Trails are crucial to the preserve, and keeping them maintained is very important. And then there's special assignments. One that we just completed was the 4th of July Fire Watch. We closed the preserve at noon on the 4th of July. For one, to prevent people from coming in and potentially shooting off fireworks. Sometimes they try to come in to watch the fireworks from the preserve out in the community. But the stewards for, it's probably been going on the better part of 15 years now, have been staffing the trailheads. 2 or 3 of them will sit at each of our closed trailhead gates, not only to tell people why it's closed, but they're also in communication with our staff as well as the fire department in the event that they were to see a fire start or something to cause concern. We also do a monsoon storm watch when we start getting the monsoon storms that roll in. We could get 3 inches of rain in one part of the preserve and it's totally dry in another. So we'll get with the stewards the next morning. They'll go out, they'll check those areas, make sure things are still intact. So in the 2022-23 season, they put in 544 individual stewards. That's part of our 3,000 volunteers for the city. Put in over 68,000 hours, which at the current value, according to the IRS, comes out just a little over $2 million per year, which is also equivalent to about 33 FTEs, which, those statistics are really important to us, but it's also hard to put a true value on it because the stewards, if you've interacted with them, they bring a passion and an enthusiasm and an ownership, quite frankly, of the preserve that is just simply unmatched. Then the consideration provided by the city would be on an annual basis for the council to consider in the budget process dollars that we can use to support mainly this volunteer training, recognition, education, and some print resources. In the recent adopted budget, there was $49,500 in the preserve operating budget to reimburse the Conservancy for costs related to those items. We also have donation collection boxes at 7 of the major trailheads for people to give donations directly to the Conservancy. And then we also work with the Conservancy for use of our spaces. With that many volunteers, there's a lot of recruiting, there's a lot of training, there's a lot of ongoing training, orientations, as well as the public programs I mentioned. We do that at our libraries, we do that at Florence Ely Nelson Park up at Pinnacle Peak and Pima, various facilities around town. We also work with the Conservancy for donor recognition panels. We haven't done a lot of this yet, but it was in the prior contract, and a great example is if you visit the Browns Ranch Trailhead, you can see some of the signage, really great, not only public information about safety and route suggestions and that sort of thing, but there's also information about the programs the Conservancy provides, as well as a small portion that recognizes some of the larger donors to the Conservancy. And then also included in the consideration is temporary sponsorships. That could be, for example, when we do the Expedition Days children's event at Lost Dog. We could work together, and again, we haven't done a lot of this yet, but it's envisioned that we could if we have a sponsor for that event, today's event brought to you by X company. So those are the major considerations that the city would provide. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. And again, we also have Kelly and Margie with us today that could.
So first of all, I would like to thank Councilman Graham for asking for the full presentation, and it really is a very worthy item that we're discussing. So did you have any comments? Did you have any comments on this item?
Mayor, I do, and it was a great presentation. I think other hands might have gone
I
up-
understand,
gone-
but you
gone up.
called for it to be on this, so I'm just giving you the.
I'll defer to my call,
Okay.
but I do have some questions.
Thank you. Please cue in, and I'll be glad. Councilwoman Whitehead and.
So I'm
Councilwoman
going
Jones.
to enthusiastically motion to approve resolution number 1285. I gotta put my glasses on, hang on 1 minute. Enthusiastically but patiently approve resolution number 12851 for this agreement, 2023-081, City of Scottsdale with the McDowell-Sonoran Conservancy. But I recognize that my colleagues might have questions, but that's my motion.
Second.
We have a second. We want to speak to your second, Betty.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Solange. First of all, very nice presentation. It's nice to see that type of information. The Conservancy members, they deserve a huge thank you from every one of us. They love what they do. It shows. They do great work. They are the backbone of our preserve. So I really appreciate it. And I think it's a shining light for Scottsdale to show how much our citizens value what we have in our city. So that's a great big plus for us. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Member Graham.
Scott, thank you for the presentation. I really just kind of wanted to hear more about the presentation tonight. I thought it didn't, it didn't, being on consent, I think I wanted to hear the full thing, because it was kind of, it's kind of something special in our city that we have. 68,000 volunteer hours, $2 million in IRS labor, valued labor. Can you think of anything comparable in the United States that packs that kind of punch?
Mayor Ortega, Councilmember Graham, short of like-to-like comparisons, I can share an anecdote with you. Numerous times a year, I'll get phone calls from other people that work for other land agencies around the country, and it's funny because I've had the same thing happen again and again. Oftentimes, they visited here. They might work in Michigan or New Jersey or some other place on natural resources and trails. They visit Scottsdale, they come out and they enjoy our amazing preserve. They see our signs, they see our maps, they see the stewards at the trailheads, and then once they get home, they get back to their desk, they call me, and the question I get is, how did you guys do that? And I can explain to them how we do it. We've got, contracts and methods and trainings and like the nuts and bolts of how we do it. But to explain to them how it happened and why it happened is kind of difficult, because we're just incredibly fortunate with our geography, our population, the passion of our citizens, and you put all of those things together, and it's definitely, I wouldn't say there's nobody out there doing it like we are, but we're a rare instance for sure.
I remember growing up in Scottsdale as a kid that, they were like, we got to save this before, it looks like Camelback Mountain. We're going to put houses all the way up everywhere. And we made that dream reality. And so I think it's pretty cool. I wanted to give, when I pulled this from consent, I also wanted to give you opportunity maybe to tell us, like, how do you become an ambassador, and kind of a little bit of promotion, if you don't mind, if you'll indulge us.
I'm going to have Kelly come up and answer that question.
It may, it's, when you're an insider, it's probably obvious, but for somebody that wants to, step one.
Good evening. Thank you, Councilman, for the question. It's not easy. You need to go through what we call S101, Stewards 101, and you go through certain training on stewardship at the Conservancy. I'm just the interim CEO. I'm not scheduled to do my S101 training until September, and I'm not allowed to wear one of the blue T-shirts until I go through S101, and rightly so. So they go through training and they go through retraining throughout the year. So, and depending on the services that, that Scott outlined, all the various jobs, I guess, or tasks or initiatives that the stewards undertake, they go through different training. If you're patrolling, if you're on trail patrol, you go through EMT and, those types of training and, first aid and other types of programs. So one needs to go to our website and self-identify and say they want to be a steward, and we get them scheduled into S101, and we take it from there.
Well, thank you, and thanks for talking to us, and good luck with the new role.
Thank you very much.
Just one more question, and then I'll be excited to vote. I wanted to ask you, Scott, about the plaques at the trailheads. Section C says that the McDowell-Sonoran, the Conservancy, can put up plaques at trailheads. I think there's one at Brown's Ranch. Is that right?
Correct. That was a recent project that we did earlier this spring, and the signage that was on the breezeway wall of the building was original from 2012, and it had become a little bit dated. We wanted to update it, so the Conservancy had a very gracious donor that offered to pay for the replacement of the entire wall. It's a 20-foot long wall that's about 6 feet tall and has a little shelf in the front. It was a lot of square footage of signage, so the donor graciously paid to replace all of it. We did some really great safety information for the public, route suggestion information, those sorts of things. And then as you move your way across the wall to the right, then there's some information just about the programming that the Conservancy provides. And then there's one panel that we put that's probably about 2 feet by maybe 3 feet that lists some of the names of the more significant donors to the Conservancy. That's so far the only place that we've done that, where we've kind of started working on the donor panels, and it's part of the Conservancy's donation program that you can be a part of, and that's what helps, some of the numbers I ran through, the city helps support the stewards, but then much of the offset comes from the donations that are provided by the public to subsidize the rest of the program.
Do you have any plans to expand that or at more trailheads? Or I know is it only right there at Brown's?
Yes, currently the place where we have done it is at Brown's Ranch under the prior agreement, and our goal is to spread it out to other trailheads as we go. Brown's Ranch was a perfect candidate for it because the signage had become a little dated. It was good signage. It had just been there for a while, and we wanted to refresh it with some newer things that we learned when we built the Pima Dynamite Trailhead. We really drilled down into what the signage was, and we wanted to then replace that at Brown's. So that gave us a great opportunity to work that in. Our intent over the coming years will be to do a similar relook and update of signage at the other trailheads. And as we do that, we'll also consider the donor element.
Very good. Well, thank you, Mayor, and Scott, thank you for talking to us tonight, and best of luck.
Next, Vice Mayor Littlefield, and then myself.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much tonight for your presentation. I remember when this preserve first started, and my husband and I went down to some of the open houses before we had bought an inch of land, and they had all the pictures out of what they were going to do and how they were going to do it and why we were going to do it that way. And we looked at each other and we said, Scottsdale is not that big a city. How are we going to do this? And lo and behold, our citizens are amazing, and they put it together. You guys put it together. Our stewards put it together. There is so much volunteerism concerning this preserve and the work that people have done for it. It's just absolutely stunning. The Sonoran Commission, the volunteers that do all of this work day to day to day, every day, keeping the preserve open for people to see and to enjoy. It's an amazing feat, especially for a city like Scottsdale that's not a huge New York metropolis. And I think it just makes you feel proud to be here and to be a part of this. And I would like to work for the continuation of this and to the growth of all the different things that we offer in our preserve. The education is a huge part of it. Educating our children as to why the preserve, why the desert is important, and why our desert is so unique. And I think that all of this has been conveyed so beautifully by your organization, and I thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Then, it appears we are ready to vote on this item. I do commend you. You do have a 990 form you filed with IRS, and I did see a ranking. I believe we are the 4th or 5th biggest in the world municipal park. And there's one behind us. I think Rio de Janeiro has, 30,000. We beat them by like 300 acres, so that's good. Feels good. So with that, let's please record your vote. Thank you. Unanimous, and we will continue. Our next item is the citizen public comments, second opportunity for the public to come forward on any non-agendized item. I'm told there are no requests for public comment. Therefore, I have opened and closed public comment. Next item on the agenda has to do with the, I guess we have petitions. Petitions is an opportunity provided for in our charter, which allows citizens to who reside in Scottsdale to petition their government and place that at the clerk's office. We talked about the clerk. We haven't seen one, so there's none on the agenda today. The next item is, so therefore that item is closed. Next item we are moving on to is the mayor and council items. Per our rules, I had placed this on the agenda with due notice, and I will just cover the topic very briefly, but it is very critical. The topic is short-term rental discussion and possible action, a future council meeting. We are coming up on the anniversary, the one-year anniversary when the Arizona legislature finally took some action allowing some local supervision, if I call it that, for short-term rentals. That law did not come into effect until 90 days after sine die, and it was, this council acted right after the summer recess, enacted to the fullest measure all the ordinances that we could. And then there was a period of registration into January. One of the most critical items was just required. It was the fencing of pools in the short-term rentals. What I'm asking my colleagues today is to, actually I'll be making a motion, but I'll explain it a little further. There have been some tragedies at short-term rentals. There have been some shootings at short-term rentals. There has been one of the largest drug busts in Arizona at a short-term rental in Scottsdale, Arizona. And there, as I said, have been some tragedies. Some people came here, weren't used to a pool, and 2 infant boys drowned. And this council has done everything that we can. And what I'm asking for from the city manager, and I'll make it a motion, pertains to 2 parts. The first part is that I'd like to see a compilation of all of the crimes, whether they're, felony, massive, whatever they were up to, a number of calls. We have had very bad experience for about 4 years. This council funded 4 police officers to try to get a handle on it, and the complaints still keep piling on from our beautiful neighborhoods on this subject. So that my motion would be for the city manager to prepare as detailed as necessary all of these issues, even for the last since we were able to enact it. The second part is I would like a report that would state what the adjoining jurisdictions have done. And I say that because we have had very strong communications with Paradise Valley, Mesa, Tempe, and I'd like to also, I don't want to say get a comparison, but I would like to know what context we are and what actions we are taking, that we have taken and could be taken. This is leading to possibly, and again, once we can agendize this, to possibly consider certain terms of pertaining to revocations and other measures, or even possible legislation. It is a concern, so I would make that as a 2-part motion. I move that that the council ask city manager to compile a detailed list of all these infractions, all the way up to serious shootings that we just heard about the other day, and the fatality in Phoenix, and then a summary of the adjoining jurisdictions. I will say that, to my knowledge, the most glaring jurisdiction that has failed to do even an ordinance is the county. And I know that the county area, unincorporated area, they're the jurisdiction that would have that has a jurisdiction to provide some statutory registration of SDRs, penalties or otherwise, and I don't believe there's been any action. I'm not trying to, I'd like to find out what the adjoining jurisdictions have done, and for information, because literally we live across the street, and this is going to be, it is at our doorstep. So with that, I hope I can make that motion and repeat it in its simplicity. I ask my colleagues regarding short-term rentals to have a report from the city manager that would outline, as I said, A, all of the crimes and so forth, and then B, what actions and comparisons leading to possibly other calls on our legislators to help us out.
I'll second that, but I see there's some comments, so.
Sure, and there's comments. Continue. Councilmember Graham, Councilwoman Janik, and Caputi.
Mayor, I think this is a great topic, and I fully support it. I wish we could go further than what we're going tonight, if that were possible. But Senate Bill 1168 gave us some tools, and our staff has been working hard on that. And so I'm excited for this motion. I saw it on the agenda, and I was pleased to see it on the agenda. STRs are menacing, especially Scottsdale throughout. 85251, 85250, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 85257, I think are the most harmed zip codes in the city. And the more we can do to stop these horror stories, to find every tool legally, and to go to the fullest extent to protect residents' quality of life, I will totally support. So I was very pleased to see this on the agenda, and I'll be excited to see what the city manager comes up with, the city manager, and how that effort comes to fruition. And I'll be looking forward to that. Thank you.
Councilwoman Janik, Councilwoman Caputi.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out that it is a very difficult situation, but we have an outstanding police department, we have an outstanding legal department, and we have an outstanding administrative department that is ahead of the curve in dealing with most of these problems. Is it perfect? No. And I am very happy that you put this on the agenda, because hopefully we can do more, but it's good to recognize how ahead of the curve we are. And the Arizona Central on July 5th published a very complimentary article about what we are doing for short-term rentals, and they credited our dedicated staff making quick work of scarce information. So I do applaud everything we've done and also recognize we always can do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Next, Councilwoman Caputi, and then Vice Mayor Littlefield.
Agree with Councilwoman Janik. We sort of, set the bar for enforcement of issues against short-term rentals in the city. We've done an amazing job. And I also agree that this problem, as Councilman Graham pointed out, continues to vex us. So as well, I'm happy to see that we brought this up as an agenda item, but I'm just the teeniest bit confused, and I have no issues supporting this, and I'm happy to have a list of infractions. I feel like we've been given pretty good information every time something happens. The police chief's done an amazing job of making sure we know every time there's an issue. So I'm perfectly happy for us to create a list and look at what other jurisdictions are doing, but I was under the impression that we're doing as much as we possibly can within state law. So I just want to ask the city manager, what will gathering a list of infractions, what will that give us in terms of more tools in our toolbox?
Good. Well, I can answer that question because,
please.
we have facts now. We have facts. We have 4 years of noncompliance and inability to register, even having, so now this council has always supported future legislation and continuing legislation on the subject. So we are, our neighbors have built a case, our neighborhoods have built a case, and it's up to us to represent that at the state level.
So we want it more as an opportunity to help lobby better at the state?
Well, that's one of the end reasons, yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand where we're going with this.
I mean,
I'm totally supportive,
Yes, to say we've done enough means that, and there's certain criminal actions especially that we cannot tolerate.
Okay.
And so if we wanted to review any of those details, I'm not prepared to do that. We are abiding, and yes, because we personally get the notice, doesn't mean that the public actually sees all that. And frankly, even before I took office, when they did the raid on Fashion Square, that came out of a short-term rental. It was premeditated. Vice Mayor Littlefield, I'm sorry, do you have something else?
No, that's helpful. Again, everything we can do that can help, I'm all in support of. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I also support this. I'd like to give a heads up to our Assistant City manager, Brent Stockwell, who has, with his team, been working very, very diligently for a very long time, trying to get information, locations, ownership, all of that kind of stuff for all of the short-term rentals that are in Scottsdale, and it's a tremendous job because they're not listed in any one place. So I would just like to say a big thank you to you, Brent, and you're doing a great job. Keep it up. I support this. I think if we could get the information, get the factual information on the crimes, the things that are going on in some of these different STRs, and have it documented so that it's provable, not just somebody said this, that might go a long way to being able to form regulations and ordinances, laws, perhaps, at not only the city level, but county and state level also, to help control some of these throughout the state, because it's getting to be a tremendous issue and a tremendous problem for a lot of our residents here in Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please record your vote. Thank you. That's unanimous. You know, I'm pleased to say we are a team, and we are finishing up our summer recess. We all have different. I want to express my appreciation as well to our charter officers. In particular, we highlighted Kathy, and really the strength of this organization. We're all proud to represent and be of the people here in Scottsdale. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you. Enjoy your summer.